Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode number 17 of the Whitey and Wills Sports Show. It is Sunday, January 9th. We recorded on Tuesday this past week. We're recording on Sunday tonight, but episode 17 of the Whitey and Wills Show. And we have got a guest with us. We've noticed that when Mike and I just riff, the viewer numbers, they just don't quite get up there the same way as when we get a guest. So we felt like we needed to get a guest in here. And so Troy VanBlaricum was nice enough to oblige us. And if you followed sports in the Effingham area, you've heard Troy's name in a little different capacity than anybody else that we've had on the show. We've had lots of coaches on, but we've never had a part of a school's training staff before. And
we've never had a professional.
We're definitely got someone smarter than us on the show this week. I think that's safe to say. But Troy, thanks for joining us. Troy is the athletic trainer at Effingham High School. And how long you been doing that, Troy?
Thanks for having me. I started there really right out of college. I started in September of 2006. So been there for a good while now.
Yeah. And you're just kind of a fixture on the sidelines. Like, you go to a game at Effingham High School and there's Troy. Greg, I don't know if you know this or not. Greg on the radio, he calls you Trainer Troy. And I don't know exactly how you feel about that, but I think that's probably how a lot of the Premier Broadcasting listeners hear you reference most of the time.
Yeah, for sure. So actually, whenever I first started, everybody called me T squared for Trainer Troy, and then it kind of went away and just kind of became Trainer Troy at that point. But most of the kids probably really don't even know what my last name is, to be honest.
No, they don't.
I guess I got a lot of questions,
Dustin, Trainer Troy. He's Trainer Troy in my phone. It's what his name is.
So what you've got your Sarah Bush Lincoln shirt on there. Is that who do you work for Sarah Bush and you're assigned to Effingham High School, or how does that work exactly?
Yeah, so I'm employed through Sarah Bush, and then we have 6 different athletic trainers. So we're all employed through Sarah Bush, and then we're contracted out to the local high schools to provide coverage for the schools.
So
what are the schools you guys cover, Troy? Because I know Susie, who was going to be here with you tonight, but I think she heard you were on as well, and she said she wasn't feeling well.
Yeah, so we cover Effingham, T-Town, Altamont. We just picked up Newton this year, and then we also cover Mattoon and Charleston.
So do you get, you've been with Effingham the whole time. Do you get some sort of say with that? Is that for as long as you want it to be, or how does that work?
Yeah, pretty much as long as we want it to be. If we pick up another school and we would prefer to go somewhere else, we have that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Or, if somebody decides to take another job and a school comes available, our current athletic trainers would probably have first option at moving to that school and then filling the school that we left.
So like, is being at Effingham High School sporting events, is that your gig, or is there other stuff that you do that I just don't see because, I only run into you at the gym and stuff like that?
Right. So actually before Sarah Bush purchased Benuti Clinic, I worked in the clinic from 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning to about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I would go to the high school at 3 o'clock and be there until sporting events were done in the evening. And then whenever Sarah Bush purchased Benuti Clinic a couple years ago now, maybe 3 years ago, I'm not exactly sure, they just utilized their athletic trainers at the high schools. So we don't have to go into the clinic anymore. So I strictly go to the high school. I go there at about 1:30 every day, and I'm there until all sports are done in the evening.
That the first part of that, when you were going into the clinic first, so what are you working, like 70 or 80 hours a week? It sounds like it sounds like a lot.
Yeah, it got to be a lot, especially like on Friday nights, you'd go into this clinic at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then if we traveled to Lincoln or whatever on a Friday night, you'd get home at midnight, 1 o'clock. And then if
you travel, don't you, Troy, usually as well, not just home games?
Yeah. So I travel with varsity football. That's the only thing that I have to travel with. And then in postseason, I try and make it to most postseason stuff if possible, if my schedule allows me to.
And it's not just so I want to know a little bit more about what goes into the job, because it's not just being there in case something happens, right? Like I assume that there's, like, if there's a basketball game, for instance, you're working with kids ahead of time if they've got something that's been bothering them or something that needs wrapped, something that needs treatment ahead of time. That falls on you.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I've got kids coming in, I get there, like I said, around 1:30. So if they've got study hall or PE kind of at the end of the day, they can get out of those classes, come down, do treatments. So we're doing, any type of treatment we can to get kids healthy and be able to play the sport that they enjoy playing. So whether that's doing rehab, whether that's heat, whether that's ice, whether it's some sort of massage, whether it's ultrasound, E-stim, I mean, any kind of treatment we can do at the clinic or at the high school, we'll do it. And luckily I've been there long enough now that we have all of those resources available to us. And then before games, yeah, I mean, I've got kids coming in, 2 hours before the game starts, if they need different treatments done, an hour to 2 hours before, and getting them ready to play. So then you got also before the games, all the taping involved with it, ankles, wrists, hamstring strains, anything that we can take care of, we do before the game to try and make them be able to perform at their best.
And I got to imagine you watch a game a little differently than I do, because like I'm just focused on the action. What you're doing. I mean, obviously if there's something emergent that happens, you have to deal with that, of course. But then I assume that I mean, obviously, which kids are having issues or which kids you have to keep an eye on. And you're probably watching so-and-so just to see, is he doing okay with this? Do we need to work on that a little bit? Is he going to be okay to finish the game? Stuff like that.
Right. For sure. Yeah. So, you watch kids in the first half, and if you see them hobbling a little bit, do we need to retape them? Do we need to work on them a little bit at halftime to get them better for the second half? Also, you're kind of looking at it too, is, if you're lucky enough to be in the standpoint of, okay, so-and-so is dealing with a hamstring issue and you're up by 25 going into the fourth quarter, like, hey, we probably don't need him playing the rest of the game, or vice versa. If you're down big, hey, let's rest him and try and get him a little bit of time to be able to be ready for the next game.
So Troy, let's say it's a football game and you've got a kid who's been dealing with a hamstring and the Hearts are up 3 scores entering the fourth quarter. Do you go to Coach Hefner? Do you have an assistant you go to? Do you just put a bug in someone's ear and just say, hey, probably a good idea to get him, off the field?
So that's one thing that I am super lucky with, is my coaches have been great. You hear all the time, coaches having spats with athletic trainers and, not letting kids participate in games and whatnot. But my coaches have been great, and they understand. They're all of the new school thinking of, hey, let's get them ready for, next week, and practice wise, we don't need to be beating on them all week long. We want them ready for Friday night. So a lot of times I'll go straight to the head coach, and talk to him and say, hey, this is kind of where we are. It would be in his best interest and in the team's best interest, if we can just rest him and get him ready for next week.
Yeah, that seems like it could be a pretty thorny issue. I'm sure you've probably, and we don't have to get into specifics, of course, but I'm guessing you've heard horror stories from colleagues about things like that.
Well, yeah, I've had coaches tell me, Troy, that have traveled here for the Christmas tournament and said, yeah, we got a kid with he's been okay, doing all these things, but the trainer still says he's got so many more days off this ankle, and the kids at lunch hour running around, everything's fine. You know what I'm saying? So it's communication. And I know my son played while you've been on the sidelines. I was doing stats, so I've seen you on the sidelines. Yeah, I mean, you're always in communication with people when things are going on, which that alleviates a lot of problems.
Yeah, and high school is a little bit of a different animal than what college is, and then obviously what professionals are. I mean, kids are still going to be kids in high school, so you hear coaches say, oh well, he's running around at lunch recess, shooting hoops and whatever. Well, yeah, he probably is, but that's a little bit different than really getting physical at a basketball game. And kids, you're not going to keep them from playing. They're still going to want to go hang out with their friends and do stuff with their friends. To where in college and obviously the professional athletes, you have a little bit more say on not having them do anything in that perspective.
How hard is it?
And it's amazing when I see you guys turn around getting kids, going back 40 plus years ago. I know when I was in high school, somebody roll an ankle at a game and they might go to ER. Oh, it may be broke. And they'd put them on crutches for a week. Well, you were done because that doctor had said, here's what you've got. Now, you guys get on it, start working on it. Most times people are coming back in able to compete in the game they're still playing in. I mean, you look at it, you tape it, you do some things, but it's just it's come such a long way, and you guys have become a huge asset to the teams you work with.
Yeah, so that's a big part of it, is kind of the one that helps kids hopefully stay out of the doctor's office or the emergency room whenever they don't necessarily need to go there.
Right, exactly.
And then also on the other flip side of it, it's kind of a liability issue from a school standpoint of having an athletic trainer on the sideline, because like you said, 20, 30, 40 years ago, I mean, at a football game, you get hurt, coach is like, just go ahead and get back in there. You're okay. Well, coach has no idea. I mean, most of the time has no idea, what's really going on with that kid. And now all of a sudden you send him back in there and something terrible happens, now the schools are at a liability for that. So having an athletic trainer on the sideline, we can evaluate them and decide whether or not they're going to make things worse, or whether it's something that we can take care of, or whether it is something that we do need to send them to the ER or have them see the doc the next day for.
Well, and another thing, I know you guys do the baseline testing with concussions and everything. And again, 40 plus years ago, as I was coming to on a football field in Litchfield, the official told our coach, I think he got the wind knocked out of him. No, I was somewhere else for about 10 seconds there. And, and that was it, or Doc Gartner would be on the sidelines on games. And, when we'd have a home game and, he was the team doctor, but coaches had to tape you. And, Coach Potoff has already said once on here, they'd love to get up above the tape of the under wrap line. And, their fun part was just taping half the hair on your legs just in spite of, those days are over. And now you've got people, you guys, take care of all that. And that takes off of coaches, because as a head coach, even when I coached, I had to tape ankles. I mean, half your pregame you're spending, okay, go down at halftime, we'll tape ankles and before you get dressed.
Right, for sure. And we're lucky too, in our area, especially with 3A schools in the Apollo Conference. Every school in the Apollo Conference has an athletic trainer. So like I said, I only travel with varsity football, but even whenever our kids go to away games, whether that's basketball or underclass football, there's an athletic trainer there that can tape them, and whatever they need. Usually we'll just send a little text message to the other athletic trainer and say, hey, so-and-so needs his ankle tape, so-and-so needs his hamstring wrap, whatever it might be. And they're really good about taking care of kids. And then your coaches don't have to worry about it on away games either,
Right. Well, it's just, it can become a distraction if there's not something in place where all of a sudden it comes down to coaches doing it.
For sure.
Now, you guys talked about communication between the trainer and the coach, but I got to imagine that maybe the bigger challenge is getting a high school kid to tell you what's really wrong. A high school kid that doesn't want to come out of the game. Just getting them to either be honest with you or understand how badly or sometimes not badly, they are hurt.
Yeah, it definitely goes both ways. Majority of the time it's that they're hurt worse than what they think they are. But there's times that, kids, it's the first time they've ever been hurt and they think, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world, and if we can just give them 5 minutes and get them calmed down, they kind of realize that, hey, it's not as bad as what I originally thought it was. But going back to kids being honest with you, one, it helps out that I've been there for so long, and they know who I am, and you try and build that relationship with kids to where they understand that, hey, we want what's best for you. We want you to play. We know that you, especially in football, you get 9 games, you're not guaranteed a postseason. So it's a short season, but you just they have to understand that we want what's best for them, and they got to be honest with us. And I'm pretty straightforward with them and say, hey, look, if you got, if we suspect any sort of concussion whatsoever, we're going to err on the side of caution, because hopefully you only miss the rest of this game, and then we can get you back for next week. To whereas if you go out there and try and play, and then you get an even worse concussion or a second concussion before you're fully healed, now we're talking potentially 3-4 weeks, the rest of the season, maybe, and whenever you put it in that perspective, kids seem to understand that a little bit more, as opposed to, okay, we need to look at the big picture here and not just the next, 6 minutes of the fourth quarter or whatever that might be. So,
and when you mention concussions, Troy, I mean, people don't understand the varying levels of severity. I know when I was athletic director at Totopolis, we had a girl get hit square in the forehead by a spike in practice. I don't know. She was doing something else, didn't see it. She was probably out 6. I mean, she never, those symptoms lingered, and she was out probably 6 weeks. And Susie was on top of it the whole time, and, we were doing the baseline testing, and you gotta pass these things. And it's amazing. My son comes home from football practice one day and says, Troy says, I got to take a couple of days off. He goes, I think I got my bell rung a little bit. And I said, well, it must not be too bad if Troy's told you a couple of days. And he said, but we're not rushing out to see a neurosurgeon. I trust, the people who are, the coaches and the staff there. So, after probably 2 days, he was back in there. But it's just, you see that. And you mentioned kids getting hurt. You can always tell when a kid has never sprained an ankle when he really rolls an ankle real good, because they think they're dying, and they're usually back in a game in like 6 minutes, and it's just that initial shock because they've never done it before.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And it's always interesting the first time a kid rolls his ankle, whether it's a bad ankle sprain or a, pretty slight ankle sprain that it might bother them the rest of practice. But they'll come in and they're like, oh, my ankle was swollen up huge. But then after I've been at school all day, it's pretty good now. And I'm like, well, you've never really seen a good ankle sprain then, because the swelling doesn't go down in just a matter of a couple hours with that. But yeah, it's interesting to see how kids respond to different injuries. But the concussion thing, yeah, you just never know. Some people, they might have headaches, sick to their stomach, dizzy, lights bother them, and in 4 days they're feeling better, and they pass their concussion test, and we put them through the proper steps of getting back to practice and getting into contact practice, and then they're back within a week. And then you've got other kids that their symptoms just keep on lingering and they might not have got hit as hard as what the kid did that's back in a week. So you just never know how a kid's going to respond to it. You just got to keep that open communication with them and hope that they understand that, and open communication with parents and coaches, and hopefully it just continues to get better.
Do you feel like, as the public at large has kind of become more aware of how disastrous untreated concussions could be, and we've become more understanding that there's no ABC diagnosis to it, and that you have to take it on a case-by-case basis? I mean, I feel like as a society, we've started to figure that one out. Do you think that the people that you have to deal with also have come along by the same way? Is it a lot easier 10 years later to, talk to people about this stuff and make them understand, like, hey, this is, there's no textbook way to deal with this. Like everybody responds to a concussion differently.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know how long ago it was, 5 to 10 years ago, whenever the NFL really kind of put all the information out there, about CTE and concussions and all that stuff. It really made it a whole lot easier. And then Mike's also been talking about our baseline testing that we do, which has helped out a ton. So kids, all of our athletes take a baseline concussion test. It's on the computer. It's an internet-based test. It's a lot of memorization and reaction time. So we get their baseline score, and then if we feel like they have any sort of concussion whatsoever, we wait until their symptoms go away. Once their symptoms go away, they come back in, they take that test again, and then their numbers have to be pretty close to where they were in their baseline before we let them go back to play. So a lot of times kids will come in and they say, hey, my symptoms went away, I feel good. So we're like, okay, let's set you up with your concussion test. And then they take the test and they realize that, hey, that's a lot harder this time than what it was before. So they feel like they're ready, but yet whenever we compare their numbers to their previous test, their brain isn't functioning properly, the way it was before their injury. So whenever you have that hard evidence in front of them and they see it, they're like, yeah, that part was really hard and I'm not back to where I need to be. So that's definitely helped us athletic trainers being able to hold kids back a little bit longer whenever they see that and understand that, because in their mind, they feel good. They're ready to go back and play until they take that test and realize that.
Troy, golfers don't get tested. I mean, I'm always worried as a golf coach, one of my kids take a ricochet off a tree right in the pumpkin. But that's all right.
Golfers do not get tested.
Enough I think golfers and cross country runners are the only two teams that don't get tested. And it may be discrimination.
I don't do my tennis players either.
Oh, well, there you go.
But so even if a kid, falls through the cracks and we don't test them, the company that we use is called Impact Test. And so Impact takes all of the tests that have ever been taken in their database, and they get you norms. So even if a kid's not tested, we can take their test. They can take a post-concussion test. We can compare them to the normative numbers and everything. And we can see, if they're in the second percentile, then obviously something's not right, and we need to hold them back a little bit longer. So yeah, if there are some kids that fall through the cracks and we don't get tested, and there are some sports that are less likely to sustain a concussion that we don't make them take baseline tests for.
Is probably when you attend an event, the most anxious, the most common of some type of injury when you're going to be pressed into duty, I'm assuming, is obviously football.
Yeah.
What would be what's next? Soccer?
Yeah, soccer's probably your next one. Just because there's probably as much contact now in basketball as what there is in soccer. But with soccer, everybody's kicking, and you just got a more opportunity to have an injury in soccer than what you do football. So I would say, or than you do basketball. So I would say football, and then soccer, and then basketball would be number 3.
Have you been fortunate enough have you ever had to deal with anything just stomach turning, or have you been lucky to not have any real gruesome crap happen while you've been in a game?
So I've had some pretty gruesome stuff, but it's really crazy. Anytime you talk to an athletic trainer, or I'm sure EMTs also, your instincts kind of just take over, and you do what you're supposed to do, and then typically afterwards you sit back and you think about it and you're like, man, that was pretty bad. Like, but knock on wood, I've been able to just take care of it and do whatever I need to do. And then afterwards, like I said, you look back at it and sometimes it's pretty crazy.
Right.
I know it was 2019 in the Christmas tournament, about 4 minutes into that first game, we had a bad injury over at Topless, and Susie had me and a couple committee members down there kind of holding towels to so the general public, weren't, gapers and watching. And I wasn't sure I was going to make it, standing there because, I was like, and it's funny because I had Morgan ended up coming down to help us. And she goes, why did I come down here? And then I was shocked that young man came back and played later that season. But Susie handled it, so well. I mean, we were more concerned about the ambulance actually getting there. It was like, where are you guys? And, you didn't go to Effingham, because I know that's happened before where they've gone to their own schools during basketball season. But we got it all taken care of. And now, Dustin, Troy almost had some special duties, a special patient during the Christmas tournament. Last day of the tournament in the 15th place game, a kid from Horizon. And I mean, this kid landed almost flat on his back prone, and his arm really bounced, and he immediately got in a fetal position. And I may or may not have started out in a quick dash down the hallway to get Troy. Might have pulled a hammy slightly. I was a little slow.
I'm sure.
Had to spend a little time in the hospitality room, but it felt better. I sat down with Mr. McCollum for a while, and it started feeling a little better. I got no sympathy from my fellow committee members, but and then Troy comes hustling down, and he gets there, and the kid's shooting at the other end, and I'm like, well, I guess he wasn't hurt, but yeah, I didn't like what I saw when he went down.
Well, the good thing was I was just in the training room. I wasn't in the big gym, so you only had to run about half the distance of what you would have if I was in the big room. So
I bet it was a quarter mile if you were measuring.
All these Effingham High School boys games. I mean, I've seen them play a lot this year, and I'm going to be amazed if you don't have to go out on the court and help Jet Volpe out at some point, because that kid just goes and throws himself up against kids a foot taller than him. And I watched him hit the deck 3 times in one game, and I was like, I don't know how he's getting up, but it has to be a job where if you get in your car at the end of the game and you're like, well, that was pretty uneventful, that's a good night, right? Like, that's a good night when you didn't really have to do too much during the game.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I always tell people, like it's a good day whenever I don't have to do anything. Especially during the game, typically there's always something going on beforehand that I've got to do. But if I can just sit there and watch a game, that's a good night for me.
Well, in the Effingham T-Town game when, Caden Altoff went down, because I was sitting right there at the end of the bench within 15, 20 feet of him when he went down. And Susie was talking, whoever was by us, Susie had turned her head, and I just reached out and grabbed her arm and said, knee. And within 20 seconds, Susie's out there. You're out there. Dave Premmer's out there, one of the assistants for T-Town, who's also a trainer. And it was just amazing. Instincts take over. You're all out there. And a young man who was in obvious pain and, who's just, had surgery this past week, hopefully on a road to recovery. But, like I said, just how quick you were there. And it's like, okay, that's not one of your kids, and they have a trainer there, but you're still there being part of the triage, I guess.
Yeah. So that's always an interesting thing too, because I mean, I've been at Effingham for so long, and obviously I want Effingham to do well. But ultimately, I mean, my job is to take care of athletes, whether they're Effingham, whether they're T-Town, whether they're, Bethalto Civic Memorial or Lincoln or whoever it is. I mean, we're just there to take care of the kids and just make sure that they're safe and comfortable, and especially if something major happens, try and calm them down and just be there for them and do what we can for them.
Troy, I'm not going to make you like tell your whole life story, but I am interested. Is is this a career path that you were, I mean, is this what you wanted to do? You know, is this something you landed on, or is this something that you set out to do like when you were in high school or college?
Yeah, so for sure. So like most kids, I grew up playing sports all my life, and um, always knew that I wanted to do something in the medical field. And then whenever you're watching sports, whether it's the NFL or Major League Baseball or whatever it might be, somebody gets hurt, somebody runs out there to take care of them. I'm like, that seems like a pretty cool gig. So kind of put two and two together, and probably from my freshman to sophomore year in high school, I kind of always knew that that's what I wanted to do. So I went to Olney Central College for 2 years, and then I transferred to Western Illinois. I majored in athletic training. Always thought that I wanted to go Division I athletics. Whenever I was at Western, that's kind of the road that I wanted to go down. Got lucky enough to take an internship out in Tucson, Arizona, and it was at a high school. Never worked at a high school setting before. And after being out there at that high school, I'm like, this is kind of where I want to be for the rest of my career. So took a little bit of a detour in that route, but after being out there, that's kind of where I decided that I wanted to be.
Awesome.
I mean, I guess I didn't know you went to Western. Is Western like an athletic training school? Because didn't Susie go to Western as well?
Yeah, Susie went to Western as well. Not necessarily. I wouldn't say they're an athletic training school. They're more of a law enforcement school is what they're known for. But I looked at Southern and I looked at Western, and I had one of my good buddies that was going to Western, and kind of just liked being a little bit further away from home. So decided to go that route, like the campus, and it's not a huge campus, but yet it's big enough, it's not like U of I to where it takes forever to get all the way across campus. You can walk all the way across it, but yet big enough.
So I think I just found, Mike, when Effingham had that road game at Macomb a few years ago, I think I found the one person who made that trip from Effingham was probably actually looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. So it was nice to get back up there. My program directors actually came to the game. So it was the first time that I got to see Renee and Jen, who were our program directors, in a few years. So I didn't mind it too much.
That was a long way to go. At least Effingham won that one. That was
I've been to a wedding in Macomb, one of the Bartlett kids. I was in Macomb for a wedding.
Sure,
So
sure.
I've made the trip there at least once or twice.
It's a haul.
It's a drive. No, when you're in Virginia, you think you made a wrong turn and you're in Virginia. So
where are you from, Troy? Where did you grow up?
Noble, down by Olney.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's almost like George Flexter territory.
Yeah, he's from down that way too.
You don't want to. It's okay to have a few things in common with Flex, but you don't want to.
Not very many.
You want to just keep that list. You want to keep that list small.
Now, Troy, sometimes I can get kind of off the wall with some questions, and I'm pretty sure if I remember this right, didn't you have a run-in once with an aux cord?
With an aux cord.
Wasn't it your car that caught on fire at Effingham High School?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, see?
There, yeah. Yep, that was a crazy day. Actually, it was my wife's car. I drove it to school one day.
That makes it even worse right there.
Yeah, I drove it to school one day, and I'm in the training room taping kids, and taped a couple of football players, and they were on their way out to practice, and they came back in the training room and they said, "Hey, did you drive that green car today?" And I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "It's on fire out in the parking lot." I'm like, "No way." So yeah, I don't know what happened to it, but that was an exciting time at Effingham High School for sure.
I don't remember if Zach was in high school at the time or not. I just remember they were like, "Yeah, Troy's aux cord caught on fire."
Well, Mike, we promised Troy we wouldn't keep him too long, but if you got any other pertinent questions to get off your chest before we?
Oh no, I had to get the aux cord in here. That was the main. No, I mean, I just, I want to thank him. I mean, when these guys started, I can remember when Troy started at Effingham. I can remember when Susie started at St. Anthony. It's such a huge it's just such a huge service that they offer the schools. I mean, and the schools pay for it, but I mean, it's so nice, especially in today's day and age. It's just not, hey, rub dirt on it and you'll be okay anymore. And it's good. I kind of joke with Susie. Just like when Troy's seeing kids in the afternoon, it's like I call it Susie's spa. I mean, kids are down there and they've got I think it's a TENS unit. You see their quads just boom, 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 those muscles are being stimulated or whatever. Kids are in ice, kids are stretching, they're doing stuff. And it's just amazing to have those services available, locally.
All right. Well, we don't have anything else. Troy, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. We're gonna shift gears to some of our talk about local sports scene for the week, but I know you got a little one that you said had a bedtime coming up. I'm hoping mine don't come busting through the door behind me anytime in the next half hour. So we've done well so far, but we appreciate you taking the time. We appreciate what you do for Effingham High School, and I'll be seeing you in the gym sometime soon.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right.
Thanks, Troy.
So that's Troy VanBlaricum, the longtime trainer at Effingham High School, athletic trainer for, like he said, he's part of the, you see him in all the different athletic events, right? Like it's,
Yeah. I forgot to ask you if he's had to go to any bull riding events yet.
well,
I'm going to ask him that question.
So Mike, when we have a guest on, we try to just kind of touch on the local sports scene. As far as the week that was in high school basketball, I'll start talking about what I know best because I was at both Effingham High School boys games this week. And the Hearts got, they played undefeated Olney on Tuesday night. Olney came in. Effingham had them down in the first quarter and outplayed them, at least the first quarter. And it was anybody. The game's up for grabs.
You're still up at the half, I think, we're tied.
Yeah, it was up for grabs in the fourth quarter for that matter. But ended up dropping that one. Olney got them 41-37. And so then you go to Mount Zion, and that was Friday night. And you look at Mount Zion, and they were 11-3 coming in.
Aren't they young? Did they play a lot of sophomores?
They did. So they were missing a couple of guys that whenever we walked in, we grabbed their athletic director, and he gave us kind of the lowdown that they had a I think an injured player and then a quarantine player. So they definitely had a freshman that played substantial minutes, and maybe even one, maybe two of them were freshmen. So yeah, there's some youth on that team now. They've got some older guys too. They had a senior score 29 points in that game. I'm kind of burying the lead here. Effingham went in there and got a win. Hearts beat them 58-52. Braden Powell's had 16 points and 16 rebounds in that game, at least by my count, unofficial. But what was on what we had in our book as far as broadcasting the game, it was just, we've talked about this season for Effingham and how the wins just have been a little tougher to come by than obviously last year when they only lost one game all season long. But the other chorus that I keep hitting is that they play hard and they don't deserve the record that they have. It's not, it just is what it is. And for that night, they went out there and they went to Mount Zion's home floor and played better, out rebounded them 42-26. I think the number ended up being, which is something Effingham's done well this year. The points tough to come by sometimes. The rebounding they have done really well. And I was just happy for Obi Farmer to get a chance to come up to talk to us after a conference game and talk about a win, and
that's a tough place to win. Anything you win at Mount Zion is a big win.
Yeah, Mount Zion's gym is interesting too. Like it's kind of a relic at this point. Like it's a big gym. It's a pretty good sized gym, but and of course I'm from Neoga, so everything's a big gym as far as I can tell. But
Signal's new gym's a big gym compared to you.
but it's still got those wood bleachers. I don't think if you built it today, a lot of it would be up to code necessarily. But it's a neat floor to go play on. It seems like every time Effingham goes to Mount Zion to play boys basketball, it ends up being a battle. Ends up being the varsity game wasn't too chippy. The junior varsity game got a little bit toward the end. These are just schools that get up for each other, I think. And it was a fun win for Effingham to get for us to call. And it kind of shows you that, again, there's no let up in this team. They played well, and it was just nice for them to get that Apollo victory under their belt.
Well, next to Charleston, they're probably the two oldest schools in the Apollo.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who's longer, Apollo, Mount Zion, or Charleston, who's in there the longest, but Effingham would have the next.
Yeah, it would have to
year of longevity. Yeah,
it would have to be, since Muhammad, Matt Toon, Lincoln, all recent additions, and Taylorville, less recent than those. Well, did Taylorville come in before?
Well, Taylorville and Effingham came in the same time, so
that's right.
No,
they were both in the mid-state because yeah,
they both got booted at the same meeting. So
Greg likes to tell that story pretty much every time we broadcast an Effingham Taylorville football game, because I think it's still all these years later, it still sticks in his craw a little bit.
Well, I saw
but Taylorville left for a while though. They went to the Central State 8.
You're right. They did leave and came back. So Effingham would be third in line.
Yep.
I was going to go watch, I was torn. I was going to go watch either Effingham only Tuesday night, or I was going to go watch T-Town Monticello.
Oh yeah, we need to talk about that.
I could have actually seen both. I told you I didn't know which way I was going. Monticello's unbeaten, just like Olney. And I thought, well, you're going to be there, and Morgan was there taking tickets. I can hear about it. So I head to T-Town, and it's 6:30. I don't know, 7:45. I'm rolling up and texting Chris Caruso. Said, "Hey, you going to the game tonight?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's halftime." What? Well, they started at 5:30, and I guess Monticello's conference starts their JV games at 5:30. So I come walking in the gym, and it's halftime, and I'm like, wow. And I did that once scouting for Dave Bartlett. I had the same situation. I went in a snowstorm to Tolono Unity to scout, and because of the snow, they'd started early, and I had to go scout that team again. They wasn't very happy, but I walk in, and the shoes are up 7 against Monticello, and whoever was supposed to be doing the panel board, where you have the individual scores and fouls, I think they had some illness, so that they didn't have anybody doing that board. So I didn't know who was scoring all the points for everybody, but Monticello's got a very nice team, and they're the team that gives T-Town fits. They have some quickness, and they're all about 6 foot. And it just seems like historically those teams have given T-Town fits. So good ball game, early third quarter. I'm standing kind of not too far. I'm standing in the doorway by the visitors bench, and loose ball, and Caleb Seymour comes sprinting over and saves it inbounds, or tries to, and then goes down and boom. I could tell he hit some part of his face on the floor, because I could have reached out and touched him. He was right there. He slid, and I'm like, ooh, that had to hurt. So he's kind of trying to get up, kind of getting in that push-up position, and I see all this drip, 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 these red drips on the floor, and I go, oh, that's not good. So in his infinite wisdom, Caleb gets up, and then, because it was a dead ball out of bounds, either he'd stepped out of bounds, or when he threw it in, he threw it into the bench or something. Well, the officials, kind of over there by him, and he just gets up and starts jogging behind the benches down towards the bench with his hand cupped. I didn't know he'd gashed a chin and had a gash by his eye. So they, Susie's there. They're rushing him into the training room. Well, the custodian, and so I end up standing there, keeping people from tracking through the blood where I was. And everybody and their brother like, well, I'm going to go get a drink. No, hey, you can't come here. You got to walk around. And this Monticello JV kid looked at me like I was speaking, some foreign tongue. I go, no, stop. I mean, I almost had to touch him to stop him because he was going to walk right through it. And so they get Caleb cleaned up, and they finally takes a long time. And now he's wearing number 41, and they get him in the game. And meanwhile, T-Town's lead has gone from like up 6 or 7. Now they're down 5 or 6. I mean, it was amazing, his lack of presence. And now he checks in, and you thought Superman came out of a phone booth. Everybody's, T-Town's getting all fired up. And first trip down the floor, he does a little back. Brendan Nieberg, just beautiful bounce pass. Hit him backdoor for a layup. And I'll be darned if he doesn't turn and start up the floor. And whatever they were using to keep him from bleeding broke loose. And now they're just blood streaming down his face. So now they got to take him out. So now they're trying to patch him up again. Well, then Monticello goes on a run and gets a lead again. And we're getting down around 3 minutes left in the game. And now here he comes back, and it's not like the under wrap, but it's a little stronger stuff they use for that purpose. And he's got it wrapped around his head like a bandana. He looks like a La Liga soccer player or something. And he's now wearing another number because had blood on 2 jerseys. And now the shorts he's wearing, my biggest concern now is they split and he has to come off the floor because I'm not sure they were the size he normally wears. So, and then Caleb checks back in and the crowd goes nuts and Superman comes out of the phone booth again. And you know what? First trip, because Monticello, even though they're not big, they were getting their hands and getting some rebounds. And he clears a rebound out. Then he scored. And it was just, he just kind of sparked them. And big win. Monticello was undefeated. And then I listened to you guys on the way home and was texting my buddy Aaron Britton, who kind of runs Nesto that does all the seedings and stuff in the state. And I said, we might have 2 undefeateds, both fall in Effingham County tonight. Well, Olney came back and won that game near the end, a tight ball game. But one of the things he puts out, he does a strength of schedule, and he'll put out a tweet this weekend per class, top 10 strength of schedule per class. And in 3A, based on his metrics, and he's primarily looking at win-losses of opponents. Effingham's got like the 5th strongest schedule in 3A in the state.
Yeah, it's
not in Effingham County in the state. And St. Anthony is in 1A. And I mean, there's, but it is, you look at people's schedules and it's a good metric. And Aaron does a lot of work. We may have him on as a guest here as the season goes on, just because of
it'd be interesting.
He's a great. I use him a lot, especially when we're getting ready for the Christmas tournament. So, and then Friday night, then I worked with Matt. We did Altamont at Dietrich, and really, here I think Dietrich has played 5 games in the MTC, and Altamont's played 1. Because those schedules are never balanced. And Dietrich came out and they couldn't miss. They hit at one point early in the second quarter, they were 6 of 9 on threes. And I'm not sure they hit the net half the time. I mean, it was just, and Altamont in the first quarter was 2 of 21. And, of course, Matt's announcing, and it's hard to announce when your son's playing and not know it. And you really wouldn't have known it if you didn't know ahead of time. I mean, Matt does a very good job. Yeah, he does a very good job with it. And I remember we were on the break, and I said, hey, Dietrich has to cool off, okay? And Altamont has to start making shots. So, I think it got up to a 16-point game. And then, here they came, and Altamont went on a roll. Dietrich cooled off and couldn't make a shot. Altamont finally clawed back and early in the fourth quarter tied it. And then all of a sudden, Dietrich comes down and in about 45 seconds hits 3 threes. Just bang, bang, bang. And they get it up to like 6, 7. And Altamont clawed back. And it was really a tale of 2 halves. I think Dietrich had 1 turnover in the first half, 12 or 13 in the second half. Altamont had like 8 in the first half, 1 in the second. But it was that second half, Altamont's defense started forcing some things. Dietrich wasn't getting as many open looks as they were. And when they got looks, they weren't making them. And, in high school games, it doesn't matter what the team is. you start getting on a roll, get a lead, and now little Johnny says, hey, this may not be the best shot in the offense, but we've got a lead. This is a good time for me to do this. And it bites things. You see it all the time. They get out, they quit doing what they were doing as a unit to get their lead. And I don't care who it is, Effingham, T-Town, St. Anthony, Dietrich, Alvin, Simeon, they all do the same thing. Every team has that mental lapse at some point. It's just how long does that lapse last? And Alabama came back and won that game. Big win. I think that they're 2-0 now. I think St. Anthony's 4-0 in the conference.
Yep, those are the two undefeated teams.
It pushes. It makes a little separation now. I mean, I know like Windsor Stew Straws, I think has one loss in the conference. I mean, there's like we've talked about the NTC. I mean, there's going to be games. First round games are going to be really, really good games. But if you're going to win the conference, not so much the tournament, win the conference, you can't have two losses. So, it's important that you get those. Dietrich's lost two close games to Altamont and St. Anthony, real close games.
Well, they lost a close one to Neoga too. I mean, that was a tight ball game as well. So Dietrich is, they're 2-3 in the conference, 10-5 overall, but obviously, tough to deal with. So it continues to be interesting. They're going to be doing, I think the seedings are this coming weekend. Yep. So I'll be real curious to see how that turns out. Just real quick, as far as conference games this week, St. Anthony's at Neoga and Windsor Stew Straws is at South Central Tuesday night. Those are a couple
good ball games.
Yeah, and Altamont's at North Clay Friday. South Central's at Dietrich on Friday. So it's a big week for South Central. They're 1-1 in the conference, but they could pick up a couple of, that's a couple of big games for them. It's going to be a muddle, and it'd be interesting to see how it shakes out. So I'm just looking real quick. I know the Effingham girls got a win over Mount Zion yesterday. I don't have all of the Saturday results tracked down yet.
Ice played havoc. I do know the Topless lost to Warrensburg Latham in overtime.
Okay, that was a boy.
And I talked to somebody who was there, and it sounded like T-Town just couldn't finish the game off in regulation, and then I guess Warrensburg hit a 3 at the buzzer to send it in overtime. And I was just told things got a little questionable in overtime. That's just how. Again, it's someone who, I respect their opinion of things, but like I said, I don't know. But that's it's hard when you lose to a 1A school. I mean, Warrensburg's a school, but it's still, that's hard. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I agree. But that's still hard. So we'll see. And I don't even know who T-Town has this week.
T-Town's boys. They've got St. Joseph Ogden Tuesday night, and then they've got Madison coming in. Madison, they've been playing Madison for a long time, and it's Madison's turn to come here Saturday. So that's the T-Town boys have. T-Town girls, they were supposed to play Mount Vernon yesterday. That one got postponed for the weather, but they did play Mattoon Thursday night. First of all, they beat Flora Monday night. They beat Flora real easily. We already talked about that because we recorded on Tuesday. But they played Mattoon Thursday, lost that one 50-44. Mattoon's real good. I'm sure that was a heck of a game to see. And really, You look at T-Town's girls' losses, and they've all been to, the Penas and the Mattoons of the world. They've Carterville. So good teams. They've got Bethalto coming in, or no, they're going to Bethalto tomorrow night, and then the Highland tournament starts Saturday. And that's always a good one. T-Town's been playing in Highland for a long time now, and that's a hell of a tournament. Lots of good schools always show up for that girls tournament. And
I saw T-Town got the 5 seed down there at Highland.
And that just tells you, what kind of a tournament it is when T-Town's, positioned there. But don't put it past them to make a run. It's a good meet, but they're a good, well-coached team, so that make things interesting. One other thing I wanted to touch on real quick, we put some up on our Facebook page, but Grace Nelson had gotten she's from Altamont, she's sophomore, and we'd given her our Attaboy award earlier this season because she she cranked out 50 points in the game, and we thought that was worth recognizing. Well, she's already up over 1,000 for her career. She's, even with a shortened freshman year, they didn't play a full schedule last year. And they're about, maybe a little past
34 games in, I think, between the two seasons.
So, already up over 1,000, very impressive. You don't see a lot of kids score 1,000 period, let alone during their sophomore season. So that's noteworthy and something that certainly ought to be mentioned. Can't say enough about, what an accomplishment that is. So wanted to make sure I shouted that out. St. Anthony.
Some people would think that picture was a slow being processed, or the person could have been waiting on her to get her 1,000th point.
Okay. We can play it that way.
Yeah.
The St. Anthony girls and St. Anthony boys both have trips to Neoga this week. St. Anthony's boys have got Mater Dei coming in Friday night. They go to Neoga Tuesday. We already mentioned that as far as the conference games go. So that's a pretty big week for the St. Anthony boys, I would say. They beat Robinson in double overtime Tuesday night.
Yeah, that was an amazing win. And again, without Craig Croy. Yeah. And Robinson's just hard to figure because seeing them at Thanksgiving, it's like for 4 minutes, they look like the best team in the tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then they don't. And so they're, I don't know. I mean, they've got some new kids. I don't know, but they're a team that I would not want to have as an early postseason opponent.
Yeah, I think, you go on the road and you go play against Mac Thompson's team and get a win. You count that as quality any year.
Sure.
And St. Anthony was supposed to be at Paris Saturday. Again, I just haven't been able to track down results or even know who played because of the weather.
They didn't get out of the parking lot. The little ice.
So, again, they've got Neoga and Mater Dei this week. The St. Anthony girls have got, they go to Neoga Thursday night. Looks like maybe they've got Monday off. I don't have anything down for them Monday. They were supposed to go to Flora yesterday. Effingham also goes to Neoga this week. Neoga they're supposed to play Pana, and Pana is in the middle of a quarantine. So Neoga lost a game during their Thanksgiving tournament. Chrisman dropped out of it. And so Neoga's JV girls had to take their place. Well, Neoga wasn't going to play their own JV in their own tournament. So they just lost the game. So they pushed Pana back, and they picked up Effingham Monday night. So that's a big week for the Neoga girls. Neoga girls are 15-2, 4-0 in the NTC. CHBC's 4-0 in the NTC. St. Anthony's 3-1. That's at this point they have established themselves as the top three. So some interesting, those are big matchups for those schools. And we talked about Effingham boys' strength of schedule. Well, gosh, they got to go to Newton this week. Then they go to Taylorville Thursday. So Tuesday at Newton.
Taylorville back out of lockup?
Well, that's the thing. It's on the schedule. I think the talk was that they were hoping to be able to get it in. It sounded like maybe Taylorville at Effingham girls Tuesday night was a little iffy, but I haven't heard anything one way or the other on that. So I don't know. Is that a pretty good overview of things? We don't want to dwell on it too much. I hear dogs in the background barking. I hear little kids running around. I know my wife probably got home from work at some point in the middle of this. So
probably going, why haven't the dishes been cleaned up?
I did that before we even left for my daughter's softball lessons in Effingham this evening. So we're good on that. So I think unless there's anything we really need to talk about, we can transition into the old Attaboy. And it's gonna seem it's interesting. We gave it to Logan Heil last week, and it was one of those things where he came off the bench for Effingham during the Christmas tournament and had a game against T-Town that just, it was just impressive. Not necessarily because the numbers blew your socks off, but
It was
mostly
a
just
gutty performance.
yeah. I mean, was called upon and he answered the call, and that was a cool thing to see. But I guess in keeping the theme with Effingham High School big men, we talked about Braden Powell's putting up 16 points and 16 rebounds in that win over Mount Zion. And to me, there's two things at play there. One, the numbers. Okay. I mean, 16 to 16 is a big game. Okay. Mm-hmm. And two, you did it in a conference game when it really meant a lot to everybody involved, I think, to get that win. I mean, I don't care how the season's going as far as where you're at in the conference or what your overall record is. That's a victory that they wanted badly, and it had to feel so good for them to get. And to me, on top of the fact that against Olney, he scored 6 points against Olney, but had a ton of rebounds in that game too, and blocked a few shots in both of these games. It was really just, I think, if you watch Braden play this week, he really seems to have taken it upon himself to find another gear. And to me, given what was, I don't want to say at stake, but given the emotion that's involved with that Effingham Mount Zion game, for him to come up big in that matchup, that's where I'm leaning at, and I think we're on the same page there. So, I'm not as slick with it this time, Mike. But
I'm a little disappointed. You have all the controls.
To our friend Braden Powell's for your week of Effingham boys basketball. This is going out to you. How's that, Mike?
There we go. You're getting better. I give you a B this week. That's not bad.
Well, it's hard to follow up your best. It's hard to follow up your best. In podcasting, it is just as the same as in athletics, and that's about the only way.
So do you have an Effingham game on the radio this week?
No, St. Anthony is since Effingham was on twice this past week. Now Effingham's on twice this week. We're gonna have St. Anthony at Neoga Tuesday night, and then Mater Dei at St. Anthony Friday night, and then of course they're going to split stations Friday and also have the Altamont North play game. So
I don't know what, I haven't got my marching orders if I'm going anywhere Friday yet. So
I think you'll probably be hearing from somebody. But I know for sure that I'm doing the game in Neoga Tuesday night, because it's a 4-minute drive across town, and I'll be in that gym a lot this week because I'd like to see both those girls games that are happening there this week.
There you go.
And then, I don't know. I'm not sure what my assignment is for Friday night either, but we'll be, Mike and I'll be on the radio, I would imagine, Friday night. So pick a station, 97.9, 102.3. You're going to hear one voice that doesn't quite seem like it belongs with the other one. And
that's us. So I'll have to drive. If I end up going with Matt, that means I drive down by myself, because Matt lives like right down there.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes with those trips down south. So
may get lost.
All right, well, congratulations to Braden Powell. He's our Attaboy. He gets our Attaboy of the week. We'll I don't know what's on tap for the show next week. We'll figure it out, but we'll be paying attention to the local.
I've got a couple surprise guests I'm working on.
All right, sounds good. Keep it suspenseful. That's good. All right, so Mike, thanks for getting with us on a Sunday night. Everybody who's watching this, thanks for paying attention. As always, tell your friends. Subscribe on YouTube, all that good stuff. We're kind of getting in a little bit of a lull with our subscriber numbers, so this would be a good week. Do us a solid. Put that out there on your Facebook page. Why not?
I'm working on a quartet.
Okay.
Be like the tenors. What were they when they had the?
I don't know. The only thing about that is always from a production standpoint, it makes me a little nervous. But But we've always pulled it off. 16 episodes in, and the only technical difficulties we've really had to deal with are 17 episodes in. The only technical
Wi-Fi.
Yep. So, all right. So again, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week. Take it easy, Mike.
All right, see you, bud.